And yeah, that sounds like a good idea, actually. To be perfectly honest with you, I think it's a journey, as you said, and kind of when we are mapping out a path for people with learning disabilities, which I've been involved in for 22 years. uh, we do it very visually with an almost well, it is. It's a very big piece of paper. So it's a kind of, you can do that for anything and anyone. And you can do that at any time of your life. So it's a kind of a visual map that people use, but you can also, you could do it on a piece of paper. So basically, where am I now? What are my dreams? What are my aspirations? Which way am I going? How can I achieve this? Who are the people that can help me? And what do I feel? Where do I want to be? Kind of, I don't know. They ask you that in interviews, don't they? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Well, as soon as I get approached with a question like that, I always say, well, I'd like to be sitting on a beach in a bikini in 5 years' time, not working at all. However, interviewers do not like that. But I think it is. I think it's a journey. And I think you're right about foundation being everything. And if you don't have that foundation, how do you go about getting that foundation? Because, with my story, everything was going well for me. I was at Townsend. I was a couple of months before my O level examinations when my parents pulled me out of the country. So then I then had to go back to Zimbabwe, and I had to work because there was no other way I could survive. And I enrolled in evening school initially just to try and buffer up my O levels, which did take me a little bit of time. And no, I think actually I'm not telling the truth there. It was a correspondence course to begin with, and after a year, I managed to get another three O levels, which then meant that I needed to get a couple more to have the initial five. So I moved town at that point from Bulawayo to Harare. And then I enrolled in the university evening school to do two more O levels. So that gave me five O levels, but I was still lacking in mathematics. I didn't have maths. So I then found a private teacher who used to teach children on her veranda in the summer. And I went and joined her. At this point, I had a son of my own who was in primary school, but because of my youthful looks, she thought I was in high school. And it was only at the end of summer that I told Mrs. Matt that I was actually, how old I was. And at that point, I was in my 20s. And Mrs. Matt continued to coach me. And I also made friends with a university lecturer of mathematics who actually set the papers. And he gave me a lot of past papers, which we worked through continuously. And I only saw him once a week and saw Mrs. Matt once a week. But looking through the past papers, working with Mrs. Matt through the basics, I finally reached the exam date and did three, and with O level maths, it was three exam papers. And for the first time in my life, I discovered that I had run out of time because I had so much to put on the paper. And I was delighted when I passed my O level maths with a B. So, continuing the story with Mrs. Matt, who was, oh, absolutely inspirational, I then went back to Mrs. Matt and said, Mrs. Matt, would you consider coaching me through A level maths? And Mrs. Matt said, no. And I said, why not, Mrs. Matt? She said, because it's not your passion, Cindy. Your passion is English language and English literature and history. And that is what you need to do. You need to follow that passion. Don't use your head and say, I need to have A level maths. She said, because where is it going to take you? You're going to be miserable in whatever you accomplish with your maths. But if you continue with your English and your history, that's where your heart lies. That's where your passion is. So that's what you need to continue to do. And so that's what Mrs. Matt encouraged me to do. At this point, I'm still working. I'm still a mother of a child in primary school. And I went and found a teacher who was happy to take me through the A level um, literature syllabus. And she then, in turn, put me in touch with two people who took me through the A level history syllabus. And as you know, I'm still following those passions. So, with passions, basically, or with dreams, I should say, you either make it your profession or your passion, or both. So, in both of our cases, we wanted to teach, and we did. We took the scenic route, but we got there in the end. And I have to say, the 6 years I spent teaching at the convent were the happiest of my whole profession. And then coming to England, I couldn't teach. I tried a bit of supply teaching, but it was too difficult logistically. So I went into something which was more of a, as you say, soft skills thing. It was what we call gentle teaching, and that was with learning people with learning disabilities. And that's where I've stayed. Obviously, I have my job at the surgery, but I've never really been able to give up the working with people with learning disabilities, because again, it is a passion. It's a calling, really. So this is what I think when talking to young people. You have to look at your dreams, where you are now, where you want to be. And as you say, you may not land your dream job, but everything is gearing up to it. So everything I did at Townsend School, my passions when I was at Townsend School are still my passions now. So, and I've managed to, if not make money out of my passions, at least still pursue them through travel, through reading, through art, and also, through the broadcasting, learning languages. And I think we are all, if we are serious about our self development, we are all lifelong learners. And, this is where your Cambridge comes into play, because if you don't have the necessary O levels or the necessary qualifications, you can go and do them. It is tough, when you're working and looking after children and doing all that sort of thing to study. But yes, if you have the drive and you have the passion, you will do it. So I think, that's the thing. It's your dreams become your passion or your profession. And there's always room for movement. So when you start in a company and you're right at the bottom, within a year, lots of people have left. You've moved up a bit, and you may not want to move up. You may want to move laterally. So, if you're in a company and the next stage is the supervisory position, but you don't want that supervisory position, you can move sideways and perhaps pick up something that is more to your interest. And you can put yourself forward by going to the boss and saying, I have an interest in this. I'd like to be your champion in this direction. So, bosses and companies can sometimes they may not pay you for it immediately, but when they see how passionate you are and how you want to do that, I've reached that stage in the surgery now where I don't want to be promoted. I'm happy doing the job I do. And the job I do is dealing with the patients and being that empathetic voice when somebody walks into the surgery or phones up feeling poorly and feeling like they can't go on. That's where my strength lies. And I've told my boss that. I've told my boss I don't want any promotions. I don't want to be, leave it to the youngsters. The youngsters are happy for that to happen. I want to be that reliable guiding light. So my bosses have realized that now. Anne, I'm 61. I don't want to be doing anything madly ambitious now. What I want to be doing is going in, doing a jolly good day's work, coming out feeling that I've made a difference to somebody's life. And that to me is reward enough. And that's why I carry on doing the care work as well, because it helps me as well. I get out of a lonely flat and I go and look after somebody with learning disabilities, and they're happy to see me, and that gives me great joy. So sometimes it's not about the money, it's about the other hidden rewards. It's not just about the intrinsic value. So I think that's the kind of thing that kind of advice I'd be giving people is to follow your dreams. And, it's the old saying, if you build it, they will come. And I'm finding that now with my writing. This is what I mean about throwing a stone into a pond. You just never know where those ripples are going to land. And so, with the poetry book that I wrote and with the poetry that I continue to write, I'm so surprised at where things have landed for me. And this will now be the third book that one of my poems has been included in. So that's the joy for me, Anne. It's not about the making of the money, although money is nice and it keeps the wolf away from the door. It's about those other things you get out of a project. Sorry to harp on, but that's what I mean about having your passions and your dreams. They're so important in this day of just mundane plodding along. We all just plod along till the next payday. So you've got to make life interesting. One of the girls at work, a young girl, in her 20s, she turned around to me and she said, "Cindy, you're passionate about everything." I said, "Yes, I am, because I'd rather that than live a boring, dull life and just, struggle on till the next the next payday." So it's good that people notice that you're passionate, because by being passionate and enthusiastic about something, you actually draw people into your orbit. And that is what you want. Your strength not lies in so much as what you know, it's who you know and how you draw those people in. And you can be of use to them and they can be of use to you. And so you're working, for the dream work is in the teamwork. Anyway, have a lovely week. And yes, we'll talk more.